Everyone in the town of Ashwick knew about the house on Briar Hollow Road. Nobody went near it after dark. Kids dared each other to touch the rusted front gate. Teenagers parked nearby at night just to prove they weren't scared. But every single person in town had the same rule: never go inside. Because 20 years earlier, the Holloway family vanished there without a trace. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just an untouched dinner table, and the back door wide open. People said the house was cursed. Others said a serial killer once lived there. Some believed the woods behind it hid something far worse. Daniel Mercer didn't believe any of that.
He was a struggling YouTuber who filmed urban exploration videos for a living. Abandoned hospitals, old prisons, haunted motels. Most of it was fake internet nonsense, but scary titles got clicks. And Daniel desperately needed views. So when he heard about Briar Hollow House, he packed his cameras and drove 6 hours into the mountains of West Virginia. Rain hammered his windshield as GPS led him down a narrow forest road. No streetlights, no houses, only black trees stretching endlessly into darkness. Finally, his headlights illuminated it. The house stood crooked atop a hill, like it had grown there naturally from rot and shadow. 3 stories tall, faded white paint peeling from the walls. Windows black as empty eye sockets. One upstairs curtain moved slightly.
Daniel frowned. Wind, he thought. He parked near the gate and grabbed his camera. "All right, guys," he said into the lens, forcing enthusiasm. "Tonight, we're exploring the infamous Briar Hollow House, where an entire family disappeared in 2006. Thunder rumbled overhead. The iron gate screeched open by itself. Daniel froze, then laughed nervously. "Okay, that was actually perfect timing." He walked up the overgrown path. Every step felt wrong. The closer he got, the quieter the world became. No insects, no wind, no rain hitting trees. Just silence. The front door was already open. A deep darkness waited inside. Daniel shined his flashlight through the entrance. Dust floated through the beam like drifting ash. The smell hit him instantly. Mold, rot, and something faintly metallic beneath it. Blood. "Hello?" he called jokingly. No response. He stepped inside. The floorboards groaned under his boots. Furniture still sat untouched beneath dusty sheets. Family photos lined the walls, but every face had been scratched out violently. Daniel moved his flashlight across the living room, then stopped. A television sat in the corner, plugged in, the red power light glowing faintly. His stomach tightened. "That's impossible," he whispered. Suddenly, thud, from upstairs. Daniel looked toward the ceiling. Another thud. Slow, heavy, like footsteps. He swallowed hard. "This is where people usually leave in horror movies," he muttered. But he kept filming. The staircase creaked as he climbed upward. Each step seemed louder than the last. At the top hallway, several doors stood partially open. His flashlight flickered. "Come on, not now." Then he heard it. A child giggling. Soft, right beside him. Daniel spun around. Nobody there. His breathing quickened. "Okay, not funny."
The giggling came again, this time from inside the bedroom at the end of the hall. The door slowly creaked wider on its own. Daniel approached carefully. Inside was an old child's room. Dusty toys, tiny bed, moonlight spilling through cracked blinds, and written across the wall in massive black letters, "He is still here." Daniel stared at it. Fresh paint, still wet. A sudden slam echoed downstairs. He jumped violently. "Hello?" Silence. Then came the sound of footsteps below him. Not one pair, several, moving slowly through the house. Daniel rushed to the hallway railing and pointed his flashlight downstairs. Nothing. But he could hear them clearly now. Creak, creak, creak. Circling beneath him. Then stopping. Directly under where he stood. His flashlight died. Darkness swallowed everything. Daniel cursed and smacked it against his palm. For one brief second, lightning flashed through the hallway window, and he saw someone standing at the far end of the hall. Tall, unnaturally thin, its head tilted sideways, watching him. The lightning vanished. Darkness again. Daniel's chest tightened. "Who's there?" No answer. His flashlight flickered back on. The hallway was empty. Then, a whisper breathed directly into his ear. "Don't let him see you." Daniel screamed and stumbled backward. No one behind him. He bolted downstairs. The footsteps returned instantly, above him now. Running. Fast. Something chased him through the hallway overhead. Boom, boom, boom.
Dust rained from the ceiling. Daniel sprinted for the front door. But when he reached it, the door was gone. Only a solid wall remained. What? Panic exploded through him. He backed away, breathing hard. The windows were gone too. The entire house had changed. The room stretched longer than before. Hallways twisted impossibly into darkness. The house was bigger inside now. Much bigger. A low voice echoed somewhere deep within it. Daniel. He froze. Nobody should know his name. Daniel. Closer this time. Then every light in the house suddenly turned on at once. Ancient chandeliers glowed overhead. The television crackled alive. Static filled the room.
And slowly, an image appeared. Security camera footage. Daniel watched in horror as the screen showed him entering the house earlier that night. But another figure walked behind him. Tall, thin, smiling impossibly wide, following him through the front door. Daniel staggered backward. No. The footage changed. Now it showed the Holloway family sitting at the dining table years earlier. Frozen. Terrified. Looking toward the camera. Something moved behind them. A dark shape crawling across the ceiling. The footage abruptly cut to black. Then words appeared. He never left. The light shut off instantly. Darkness. A loud creak sounded nearby. Daniel slowly turned his flashlight toward the dining room doorway. Someone stood there. A woman. Pale skin.
sunken eyes, her mouth stitched shut with black thread. She pointed toward the hallway behind him. Violently, desperately. Daniel turned.
The tall figure stood at the end of the corridor, at least 7 feet tall. Its arms hung far below its knees. Its grin stretched ear to ear, and its eyes were completely white. The creature twitched unnaturally before sprinting toward him. Daniel ran. The house seemed alive now. Doors slammed. Walls shifted. Whispers surrounded him from every direction. Stay with us. Don't leave. He's hungry. Daniel crashed through endless hallways, searching for an exit. Then suddenly, he found the front door again. Moonlight shined outside. He lunged toward it. A hand grabbed his ankle. Ice cold. Daniel looked down. Dozens of pale hands reached from beneath the floorboards, clutching his legs. Human faces pushed upward through the wood like bodies trapped beneath thin ice. Screaming silently. The Holloway family. Daniel kicked free and threw himself outside. He rolled down the wet hill, gasping for breath. Behind him, the house stood silent once more. Dark. Empty.
Like nothing had happened. Daniel scrambled to his car and sped away down the mountain road. He didn't stop driving until sunrise. The next morning, he uploaded the footage immediately. But something was wrong. The entire recording inside the house was corrupted. Only static. Except for the final 5 seconds. Daniel watched them repeatedly in horror. The footage showed him sleeping in his motel room later that night. Someone stood beside his bed. Tall. Thin. Smiling. And just before the clip ended, the figure slowly turned toward the camera. Its white eyes stared directly through the screen. Then it whispered, "I found you."
As the sun began to set on the small town of Millfield, Indiana, a strange feeling settled over the community. It was a feeling of unease, of uncertainty, as if something terrible was about to happen. And then it did. At precisely 9:30 p.m., the power went out. The darkness was absolute, and the silence was deafening. For a few moments, nobody moved or spoke, as if they were waiting for something to happen. And then a blood-curdling scream shattered the stillness. It came from the direction of the old abandoned house on the edge of town, a place that everyone knew was haunted. Some said it was cursed, others said it was home to ghosts and demons. But nobody had gone near it in years. Until tonight. As the residents of Millfield peered into the darkness, trying to catch a glimpse of what was happening, they saw a figure emerge from the shadows. It was a woman, dressed in a long white gown, her hair wild and unkempt. She stumbled towards them, her arms outstretched, her eyes wild with terror.
And then, as suddenly as she had appeared, she collapsed to the ground, dead. The police arrived soon after, and they began to investigate. They discovered that the woman had been a reporter sent to investigate the mysterious disappearances that had plagued the town for years. She had come to the abandoned house to uncover the truth, but she had been too late. As they searched the old house, the police discovered a secret basement hidden beneath a trapdoor. It was filled with evidence of the disappearances, including photographs, newspaper clippings, and even bones. And then
they found something even more terrifying.
A note written in blood that read, "You're next." This may contain a creepy house in the middle of a forest at night. The police were immediately on high alert. The note made it clear that the person behind the disappearances was still out there, and they could be coming for the people of Millfield next. The residents were all advised to lock their doors and stay indoors, but for some, it was too late. Over the next few days, more people went missing, and their bodies were found in the same basement. The police worked tirelessly to try and catch the killer, but they seemed to be always one step ahead. And then, just when they thought they had a lead, the killer struck again, this time targeting one of the police officers who had been leading the investigation. The town was in a state of panic. Nobody knew whom to trust or where to turn. Some people started to talk about leaving, but others were too scared to even consider it.
And then, one night, a resident of the town had a strange dream. In the dream, a ghostly figure appeared to them and whispered a name. When they woke up, they couldn't shake the feeling that the name was somehow significant. The resident went to the police, who were initially skeptical, but as they investigated further, they began to see that the name might just be the breakthrough they needed. They tracked down the person named in the dream, and to their shock, they found the basement filled with evidence pointing to them as the killer. The person had been hiding in plain sight, and nobody had suspected them. As the person was taken into custody, the town of Millfield breathed a collective sigh of relief. But the memory of those dark days would stay with them for a long time to come. They had learned that evil could lurk in even the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are all too real.
My ex-husband and I used to love going into old abandoned houses years ago. There was a beautiful old 2-story brick home about a mile from where we lived. The grass and trees were so grown and tall, it was hard even getting to the house. My ex managed to get a window open, and we climbed through it. It was like a time capsule. Very nice and expensive furniture and stuff everywhere. Furniture was covered with really dusty sheets. Everything looked high quality and expensive. Even the wallpaper was rich. It was creepy how it seemed like they walked away from all of it in the 1950s or 60s. The kitchen was upstairs, which was odd, but we ventured up there and there was a huge arch opening into a gentleman's-type man cave. Again, lots of expensive furniture and stuff. I stood in the archway while my ex rummaged through stuff. Off to the side of the arch was a huge mirror leaning against the wall. I used it to check my hair for spider webs.
Took maybe 3 steps away from the mirror to tell my ex I wanted to go. It literally felt like someone was standing beside me. Took the 3 steps back to the mirror, and in bright pink lipstick were the words, "Get out." I swear on my life and the lives of my children, it was right there, and it hadn't been 2 minutes before. The mirror was only a few feet behind me the entire time, and I definitely would have seen "Get out" in bright pink lipstick a minute before. I even remember the exact shade of lipstick, too. It was the kind old ladies like to wear. Well, I screamed and jumped back into a kitchen table and fell. My ex comes running over, and I am so scared I just point to the mirror, babbling like an idiot. My ex calmly got me out of there, and we never went back. He thinks I didn't notice it before, but I was all up on that mirror, so I would have absolutely noticed bright pink lipstick in the middle of it. Get cold chills every time I think about it.
One of my favorite hobbies is photography. So one day, while visiting Virginia for a job I was working at the time, my friend and I decided to go look for some abandoned places to take photographs of, since Halloween was just around the corner. So, after some driving around and some quick phone research, we find this 1950s-era abandoned insane asylum. We couldn't find a way in, and all the door entrances were locked, boarded off, and guarded by cameras. Finally, we found an old busted window that led to what once was the kitchen. After some quick thinking, we found an old chair and hopped in. The place was super dark, wet and cold, and as soon as I set foot down, I got the chill down my spine, as if something was there, or somebody or something was watching me. My friend, who was a lot less shaken, wanted to go look around. I started snapping pics of things that were broken or flipped over. My friend walks down a hallway with the words, "All who enter die," written on the wall. I did not follow, but between being spooked and taking the pics, I just wasn't ready to take that step yet. It wasn't 30 seconds later, my friend comes speeding back in the room, looking frightened, but trying to keep himself calm, and said, "All right, I've seen enough. Let's go, now." I said, "What happened? Did you see something?" He didn't say a word, but walked past me and started climbing back out the window we came in. I was close to the hallway, and I guess my nature curiosity kicked in, so I leaned over and peeked down the hallway. At the end of the hallway was an empty chair. Something small was in the chair, looked like a ball or something. And the next thing I know, it slid off the chair and landed on the floor. I was totally freaked out. I screamed, "Oh, hell no," and ran for the window. My friend was waiting on the other side, so I threw in my camera and I leapfrogged out the window, cutting up my hands in the progress, but not really caring about it. We ran back to the car, got in, and sped away. It wasn't until a few minutes and a few miles later we finally calmed down enough to talk to each other about what happened. I said, "Did you see that ball in the chair? When I looked down the hallway, I saw something in that chair, and then it fall to the floor." My friend looked at me with shock and disbelief in his eyes and said, "It wasn't a ball. I was walking down the hallway, peeking into the empty rooms, and it was creepy seeing the flipped-over beds and stuff scattered everywhere. But when I got closer to the end of the hallway, what looked like an empty chair, a small doll sitting there. I thought it was spooky, but probably some crackhead put it there. And as soon as I thought that, the doll went from sitting up to laying over. So I ran out of there. I thought I might have overreacted, and maybe it was a breeze or something that knocked it over. But once you said it got knocked to the ground, I knew it could have been a breeze, and that totally freaked me out." About 10 months ago, I was hanging out with my college buddy Chris in his small hometown. We were having a blast, hitting up the local bars and just enjoying ourselves. On my last night there, Chris mentioned this place he wanted to check out, a rundown spot in the woods, some abandoned houses or something. Now, Chris and I used to be big into exploring back in college, so it sounded cool to me. Within 30 minutes, we were trekking through this path in the woods, just before sundown. We had our headlamps handy, just in case. After about 20 minutes, the trail ended, and we had to follow this faint footpath through the trees for another hour.
Finally, we saw it. A cluster of houses in the distance. They weren't as decrepit as we expected, though. They looked weathered, but had modern siding and stuff. There was even a gravel road leading to each house. It seemed like they were meant to be a community, but something went south. Graffiti covered the sides of the houses, showing others had been here before us. Chris and I approached the nearest house, peering through the open doorway. Weeds were sprouting through the floorboards, but otherwise, it was empty. Then, out of nowhere, there was this loud slam that echoed through the woods. We both jumped, scanning the gravel road where we thought it came from. After that, dead silence. We were spooked, but shrugged it off and stepped inside. There wasn't much to see downstairs, just the remnants of what might have been a nice home. Upstairs, though, it got weird. It was darker than it should have been, like the windows weren't letting in any light. The hallway was short, with only 2 doors and what looked like an attic.
We went to the first door, opened it, and found another empty room. But then we heard footsteps outside, shuffling through the grass, getting closer to the house. We froze, listening as whoever it was approached. They came right up to the front door and stopped. "Hello?" a shaky voice called out. "I just want to talk. No harm at all." The voice was raspy, like the guy was missing teeth or something. We stayed quiet, wondering why he was approaching us out here. After what felt like forever, the silence was eerie. Chris cautiously went downstairs, peeking out the front door. His face went pale. "There's nobody there," he whispered urgently. I hurried down to see for myself, and he was right. No one in sight. We exchanged a look, both realizing the guy must have been hiding inside the house. Without a word, we bolted for the trees, racing back to Chris's place as fast as we could. Who that guy was and what he wanted, we had no clue. But one thing was certain. If he'd found us, we might not be here to tell the tale.
I was on a cross-country trip, heading to Maine for work and planning to visit friends and family along the East Coast. On my 4th day of driving, I was navigating through Pennsylvania. The drive mostly passed through empty one-lane highways with occasional small towns. As evening fell, rain began to pour, and my fuel was running low. I hadn't seen a gas station for a while until I spotted a small one nestled among trees, barely visible through the fog. Relieved, I pulled in and tried to refuel, but both pumps were out of order. Frustrated, I noticed a dim light in the small building nearby. Hoping for help, I approached the door, which was fogged over. I couldn't see inside clearly, but the dim light suggested someone might be there. The door screeched open, revealing an empty and wrecked store. Shelves were knocked over, and the place looked abandoned for years. A strange lamp illuminated the back, casting an eerie glow.
Feeling uneasy, I hurried back outside. As I turned towards my car, I saw a person, drenched and staring into my car windows. Startled, I yelled at them. They glanced at me and then looked past me towards the store. A man emerged from the store with long black hair and a chilling look. Without hesitation, he sprinted towards me. I scrambled into my car, but he tried to open the door. I managed to drive off, hearing a scrape as he ran a knife along my car. I sped away, running on fumes until my car finally sputtered to a stop. Thankfully, I had cell service and called for help. Later that night, the police told me the gas station had been closed for over a decade. What would have happened if I hadn't escaped remains a chilling thought.